Okay, we're back. As I was saying, this might be like a Frio type point because we don't know if that had a point on that side or not. Same with this side. The teeth don't look like they are squared off like the other ones. So this may not be a Montell. Kind of thick. I won't be doing too much narration during these. I just want to show you the flake scar pattern. This one has a slight twist. So some of these did have a twist. Some of these had lots of step fractures, some of them didn't. Some of them don't have any step fractures. Some of them are reworked in strange ways, it looks like. So they may have been used as knives. That looks like a hafting break to me. This looks like secondary flaking as a knife. You know, just hold it in your hand, you can still cut with it. Yeah, it looks like some secondary work on that one for some reason. You know, after it was broken in the haft, they took it off. Instead of discarding it, they continued to use this for cutting other things. Okay. Very thick base. Almost 5/16. The lobes on this are kind of rounded, so I don't know. May or may not be a Montell. This material here, I've got some in my shop. It heat treats, but it does not heat treat very well. But if you try to work it raw, it's miserable. Let's see. I've got a Bandy type that I was trying to work. Luckily, I still have it. This is heat treated. Now, if I were them, I would try to heat treat this, but I cannot tell. On mine, since it's brand new, the edges feel really sharp and slick like a heat treat. This doesn't really feel like a heat treat. So he may have just worked it raw, but it's pretty difficult. So I heated this. That's the only way I can get long, big flakes like this with any regularity. Okay, and I had trouble with an inclusion here. Okay, so this is like a Bandy type point. Same material. Very easy to find this material in the area where it was in Central Texas. I think that site's in Central Texas. I could be wrong, but there's a lot of this around. So you can get good at working it, and you would need to be very good at working it to work this raw. So if I were going to bet, I would say this is heat treated for sure. Okay. Long flake there. And I think what happened is when they were, finishing the blade, they would do the tip first and work their way down, and the last flakes to finish the blade would be down toward the bottom. Instead of, thinning the bottom first and then working toward the tip, I think what happens is they work the base, get these notches done, get the base looking right, and then start at the tip and flake down one side, flake down the other side, and then flip it over and flake, starting from the tip, so the last flakes will be close to the and the last flakes overlap with any flakes that were sent up from the base. They are eliminated by the last flakes. So this is a good example of that, where a large flake was shot across, removing some of the flake scars that were shot upward. Okay. Thickness is at the base, very thin blade. Maybe a slight twist, but not much at all. No, that's not the same. I'd like to see if these materials are the same. Yeah, those are the same. Just because if I think one of these was raw, then the other one probably is raw too. If they did this, I can't tell. But if they did this raw, that's extremely nice, very skilled work. Look how thin that edge is. If this is worked raw, that is some very high skill there. I mean, it's less than an eighth, and you get down to the edge, and that's a 16th right there. And then the very edge is a 32nd. But there's not very many flakes. You can see the pass, the final pass, but there's not that many. So there's like dull and sharp areas on all of these. It's not a continuous sharp edge, and it's not a continuous serrated or dull. It's all random on many of these. But yeah, that's the same material. But you can see the size of variation. The width of the bases, or the width between the bars, is about the same. So, I mean, the same napper could have made both of these. And this is just more reworked here along the edges than this one. But the thicknesses are different. But the hafting thicknesses are about the same. The blade thicknesses are different, but the hafting thickness is about the same. Okay. Big step. Nice sharp. Well, this one's not that sharp. That looks that actually feels very worn. This one's sharper on this side. Most of these, I'm assuming, are hafting breaks when they have a tooth broken off. This one looks like it's broken in manufacture because the sides are going out this way instead of up and inward. Most of these are going inward as they go up. These sides are going out, so that tells me it's not finished. You know, it's like this, where the sides go out. Or this is a better example. See how the sides are going out? I would guess that this is broken in manufacture. Okay. That looks like a hafting break to me. Just broke off in between the barbs. Pretty good bending snap. Yeah, these edges are all random. Some of them feel very sharp, some of them don't. This one's got heat damage, serious heat damage. Now, why would they be damaged like this? I've heard that, you know, they would cook the meat, and sometimes the meat would have the point in it, but usually don't cook the meat at 300 or 400 degrees. I mean, you can, but the interior of the meat doesn't get that hot. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. So maybe it just fell in the fire. You know, they found it in the meat and it dropped into the fire. Because this will happen if it falls into a fire. Or if there's a forest fire and it's on the surface. This one, I don't know. I don't think this is a Montell. It looks like a Jetta or something. Or a Gower, maybe. I'm not sure if they're contemporary, but that's what it looked like to me. So yeah, I can't really tell if these are heat treated or not. Some of these edges are very worn, some of them are very sharp. But most of them are a combination of sharp areas and dull areas. But they don't feel ground, they just feel like they're not well chipped. Or they just brushed up against something, or they were used, or the resharpening wasn't very good. Whatever reason, it just feels random. Some areas are sharp, some areas are dull. Sometimes when it looks really sharp, it's not. Like this one looks like it could be really sharp, but it's not that sharp. It's kind of jaggedy, but it's not that sharp. Nice and thin though. And you can see good quality on that side, not so good quality on this side. But they still worked with it. And you can see this one, this tooth is a little more bulky than that tooth. But this could be a hafting break here. This is definitely an impact fracture. So the combination of impact fracture there and a hafting break there. A lot of these hafting breaks are semicircular, like that. This one has some pretty good indications of pressure flaking. Big old flake taken out of the notch on that side. But this looks like a pressure flake on this side and a big old percussion flake on that side. Or they could both be made with percussion or both made with pressure. Hard to tell. That's pretty sharp. That one not so much. So the edges are different. One edge may be sharp, the other may be dull. This one looks severely worked down, but definitely looks like a Montell base. This one, impact fracture and a broken tooth in the haft. That would be my guess. Hard to tell what this one is. It might not be a Montell. Could be a resharpened point of another style. That's crudely resharpened. Not very sharp. It looks like it's just quickly resharpened. Whatever it was. It's one of the few that I have that have the point intact. Nice and thin. Nice flaking. Not too much edge rework. Takes a lot of skill to use the minimum number of flakes to create a point. So that was a skilled skilled napper there. Kind of thick, reworked quite a bit. Tip is almost there. It looks like an impact fracture. I would say definitely in that lateral dart point. Kind of thick though. I mean, very thick in comparison to these others. Almost 5/16. Severely reworked. Heat damage. Broken during construction or during manufacture, because this is going out that way instead of straight or in. And like I said before, if I see the edge going out, it looks like it wasn't completed. This one is obviously finished. See how the edge contracts up toward the tip. A little bit of heat damage right there too. After the fact, base is thicker than the blade. Otherwise very well made. Very sharp on this side. Actually very sharp on both sides. Well, feels like there's a little bit of work on this. Like there's a little bit of a dull spot there. Another heat pop. Some of these is hard to tell if they're after the fact or not. So I've seen some points that were worked even though they were damaged by heat. They would still work the stone even though it had pops in it. So it's kind of hard to tell if this is before or after the fact. Now, of these that I've been looking at, what percentage do I think are heat treated? I would say, especially stuff like this, I would say most of it is, but that may just be my bias. But I would heat treat all of this stuff, even if it's just a little bit. It improves it quite a bit. I mean, any heat on this will improve it, and some only needs a very little bit. So I would heat all of this. But I imagine some of these were worked raw. But you've really got to break into the stone and work each individual preform and judge for yourself whether you're going to heat the preform or just continue working it. And like I said, some of these only need a little bit of heat to make a big difference, and you can't really tell how much heat treating is involved when it's just a little bit. So I can't tell on this one, although I would heat this material for sure. A little bit of banding going on. Some very nice looking flaking. I can't tell if that's an impact fracture or not. It probably is. So there's not too much base damage on these from impacts. I've got some of my own here. I'll break out my own here in a minute. I can show you some more Montells that I think were broken in the haft from impact. Definitely some bold flaking there. Pressure retouch. Some spots are sharp, some are not. The bases, some of them feel a little bit ground, but I think that's just a result of the fine flaking. You see a lot of fine flaking on the bottoms on these, not so much on the edges. I don't know if you can see the little bitty flaking. On the bottoms. They did take little flakes from the bottom more than they did on the edges. And I think that's just to strengthen the base so it won't snap easily when you're inserting that into the haft and, you know, trying to get it seated. If the bottom is really thin, it'll just, you know, flake and chip where you don't want it to be flaked and chipped. That looks like an impact fracture to me. A snap off. Same with this one. Oh, this is some weird edge wear. I don't know. I don't know what happened to that one. I would say that was snapped off in the haft. Heat pop, probably after the fact. Well, I think that's pretty obvious. You usually don't see those. If you're working a piece that's heat treated and has defects on the inside, it usually snaps somewhere else. You don't take a flake and then say, ooh, that's got some weird stuff. Usually it doesn't look like that. That's usually from after the fact heat. That would be my guess. Okay. Both are missing. Both teeth, so to speak. Here we got some, just the base by itself, but this has got heat damage, so it's hard to tell. It could be, you know, broken off in the haft, dropped in the fire, and then heat popped. You know, you can, if you have it in the haft, it's broken off, you can just toss the haft into the fire or whatever if you don't want to re-haft it. If you got a lot of stone, I mean, if you have a lot of time on your hands, you can rehaft them and stuff, but sometimes it's just easier to take one of the foreshafts that you've already made and just start a new one, get rid of the old ones, especially if it might be broken down here or something. This is an average size. I'm bringing this out because this is, I use this kind of like the average size of a foreshaft and compare it to these and see if it would look good on a foreshaft like this. And if it doesn't look good on a foreshaft like this, I consider it a knife. Like this one here looks like a knife to me because I don't know if I would haft it to that. And just for reference, I have some other ones here. These are full size. Okay. So this one here on this side is pretty much in line with this thickness here. This is a little bit thinner. These are a little bit thinner than what I've got here. Some of these more narrow based ones would fit fine in this haft. Okay, so this is definitely a projectile point in my book. Some of the cortex is on this one. I don't know if I showed this on this side. Very thin. Thinner than mine. Oh, I made this, by the way. That's kind of a Martindale or Bandy type point. But yeah. Okay. I do have some that are tips without bases. They could or they may or may not be Montells. But since they're found at the same site, probably were. It looks reworked. This one does. This one's got a bit of a twist, so it's hard to tell if it started out that way or not, or if it's actually a Montell or something else. But it looks like it has a good basal notch, so you can imagine a couple of teeth on there. But it was given to me like this in the same grouping, so I'm going to assume that this is a Montell or a similar point, and it's got quite a bit of a twist near the tip. You wouldn't be able to tell from down below if the tip was broken off. You see what I mean? So just because it's straight at the bottom, you can't discount the possibility that it could have a slight twist or a bend near the tip, like this one. This one is pretty straight, looks like, yeah. But the edge work is crude. It's not sharp at all. Okay, I think that's it. Just to give you an idea of a true arrowhead, quite a bit of difference. This is a reproduction of an Apache. I got the whole arrow here. Let's see. This is a reproduction of an Apache arrow that I got, just to give you an idea of the size comparison. This is the rest of the arrow. So yeah, I mean, none of these are small enough to be considered small enough for arrow points. I wouldn't want to use any of these on an arrow. I suppose they would work. But yeah, they're all little dart points or knives. Some of this is the same material as this. This is an exact reproduction. Okay, so that just gives you an idea. Okay, I think that's it. And we're already running into almost 30 minutes, almost an hour for this total video. All right, I'm going to do more like this. I got a bunch of artifacts. Oh, I know what. I still have some of mine back here. All right, these are from my personal collection. Let me just move these out of the way. Okay, a lot of these have hafting damage. Like this looks like an impact fracture here and a tooth broken off in the haft. Same with this, impact fracture, tooth broken off in the haft. Another hafting break, tip break, looks like impact again. Extremely thin. Yeah, I can probably get a width to thickness. A little over 1.5 inches. 3/16 at the thickest. Very well made. Definitely in that lateral dart point, because it would haft very nicely onto a stick this wide. Personally, I wouldn't throw that at something being so thin, but obviously they did. Okay, a little bit of heat damage on this one. I consider that a hafting break there. So this was, impact damage on the tip, impact damage on the base, and then somehow wound up in a fire. This one is a classic, well, I call it classic hafting break. Those two little semicircles there, because I've had that happen to me. Not shooting it, but trying to seat it into the foreshaft. I've broken off pieces like that in a semicircular pattern. So that tells me, well, I would guess that this is an impact fracture at the tip and an impact fracture in the haft. I'm not sure what kind of break that is. Probably an impact. This is an impact fracture here. A little bit of fire damage. Edge is still kind of sharp. This one probably a knife, probably broken during use of some sort. And this one, I can't tell what's going on with it, but it looks like broken in manufacture. Nice material, very thin, but couldn't get very far with it. Looks like the napper couldn't get very far and just broke during manufacture. Broken two ways. And it's not squared off properly, so it looks like it was still under construction. I really can't tell what's going on with this one, but that would be my guess. Broken during manufacture. Okay, so these are mine here, and I do have a few more, but they're packed away, so I'm not going to get those out. But hopefully that'll give you an idea. And I will do more like this. I've got a couple hundred artifacts, so we'll see how it goes. Okay.